Hello and welcome to the next installment of the Nozzle Preference series that I've been working on. In this segment, you're going to see a portion where I'm still continuing my interview with Brian Brush, and what we bring up in this one is the possibility is, can we push fire? For years we operated under the thinking that we can push fire if we fight fire the wrong way. Well, then when the UL and NIST studies first came out, one of the first things and one of the most startling things that they said was that you can't push fire. And so they gave very technical explanations and the reasons why they could do that, which for obvious reasons caused quite a controversy within the fire service. Well, as they've continued to research and doing their studies, now they're taking somewhat of a change of position and saying that we can, in fact, push fire. So in this segment, we're going to talk about that. I'm going to actually show you the video, the latest from UL and Dan Madrukowski, and allow him to do the explanation on the conditions of where we can push fire. But then there's three major things that I want to bring up on how that happens. And one of them could be the type of stream that we use. If we apply the wrong type of stream from the exterior, we can cause an overpressurization and therefore push fire. The other thing we can do is the movement of the stream, and we'll talk about that. And then the third way that we can cause that is the distance we are away from the window when we try a transitional attack and the angle at which we try to employ the attack. And so, anyway, hope you enjoy this.
The complete information is that you can push fire. That is why, before it was you can't push fire, we all felt like it didn't matter if it was a fog stream or a straight stream. But the conclusion to this, after the entire complete information, is that you can push fire, and that is why we do not want that variable. If we are addressing an interior fire from the outside or the inside, the fire is on the interior of the structure, we need to be straight or solid. Solid eliminates the variable.
When the argument that's gone back and forth is, can we push fire, can we not push fire? And water cannot push fire, but pressure can push fire.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about, and I like the term that you use, is the variable that comes into play with the fog nozzle. When I'm using the smooth bore and I've opened the bail all the way, it entrains the least amount of air, which thus relates to it's not increasing the pressure into the compartment as much. If we accidentally open that fog nozzle even 5 degrees, it exponentially increases the amount of pressure that is pushed through because of the air entrainment. So when we talk about air entrainment, that's why it is so significant. And I'll show a video of where when a fog nozzle was applied incorrectly from the exterior, that it blew fire down the stairwell. And most of you have seen this video, but it's use it in the context of in our subject for today.
Many firefighters have been taught that all hose streams can push fire. Therefore, you must always fight fire from the unburned side. Some firefighters have even experienced fire being pushed on them. But what does pushing fire mean? Pushing fire: when fuel gases hot enough to burn are displaced or pushed by pressure from an oxygen-limited fire compartment to a space with oxygen that mixes with the hot fuel gases and results in combustion. What conditions do you need to push fire? Well, typically, you need a ventilation-controlled fire in a flow path that has intake and exhaust vents. Then you need a pressure source to create the push. In addition, you need an area on the low pressure side that has oxygen available for combustion. If you do not have these conditions, you cannot push fire. The pressure source could be from the wind, a fan, a fog stream, or a solid stream on a hand line that's being whipped around. If you review our research studies, we've conducted studies with each of these sources of pressure, and you'll see that even a small increase in pressure can drive hot fire gases through a space at speeds ranging from 6 miles an hour to greater than 20 miles per hour. There are situations where firefighters may want to use this push to their advantage when fighting a fire. Working with ISFSI and the Spartanburg Fire Department, we set up some tests to demonstrate pushing fire and also to show how it is important to choose your hose stream wisely and use it effectively for times when you want to avoid the push, the buildup of pressure. This video shows a post-flashover room fire in the rear of the structure. The rear room window is serving as both an intake and an exhaust vent for the fire room. The middle room is connected to the fire room by an open doorway. The middle room is also serving as an exhaust-only vent because the windowsill height is above the neutral plane. Note that the exhaust gases have enough heat and fuel to burn, but they don't mix with enough oxygen to burn until they are above the eave line. The fog stream is going to minimize the water entering the fire room, maximize the air entering the fire room, and provide the air pressure needed to push. Let's look at another experiment. Here we have two rooms on the second floor of a house. Both rooms are similar in size and had similar fuel loads, consisting of a wood bed frame, mattress, box spring, wood dresser, and pallets. The interior finish of the rooms in the connecting hallway at the top of the stairs consisted of wood paneling and oriented strand board on the walls, gypsum board and OSB on the ceiling, and wood flooring. The open doorways from each bedroom are opposite each other at the top of the stair. The doorway to the exterior at the bottom of the stairway is open. The cameras are located in this doorway looking up the stair. This door will serve as an air intake for the fire upstairs. The upstairs windows are the only point of exhaust initially in the fire, as the smoke building in the hallway does not have enough pressure to push all the way down the stairs against the intake flow of the air. The beds in both rooms were ignited at the same time and the fires began to develop. When both rooms had reached the fully developed fire stage, based on the available ventilation, gas temperatures near the ceiling were in excess of 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and the command to initiate water flow was issued. On the right-hand window, 150 gallon per minute straight stream was flowed. The straight stream was deflected off the ceiling to cool the gases in the room. The straight stream was then applied with minimal movement. This stream choice and nozzle handling technique maximized the amount of water entering the fire compartment, minimized the entrainment of air due to the hose stream, and kept the vent area of the window as open as possible to maintain the window as a low pressure exhaust vent. This allows combustion products and steam out of the window even though the line is flowing. The result? Little to no impact on the fire in the hallway at the top of the stairs, and a temperature decrease from the peak temperature at the ceiling in the right room from approximately 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit down to 300 degrees Fahrenheit. Next, a 150 gallon per minute fog stream, wide enough to cover the window, was flowed over the left-hand window on the second floor. The idea was to cover the vent, which minimized the amount of water that entered the fire compartment and increased the amount of air that was entrained into the fire compartment, and increase the pressure at the window vent, thereby blocking the vent. Initially, this caused a surge of heated gases and smoke to be pushed down the stairs, as well as an increase in temperature in the fire compartment. As the fog nozzle was moved forward, more water began to enter the compartment and the temperature began to decrease. The fog stream created a higher pressure area at the window, effectively turning the exhaust vent into an intake. This added extra air for combustion, and it was an ineffective amount of water. In other words, not enough to cool the fire compartment, and therefore it converted to steam. This combination increased the pressure in the fire room and caused a quick burst of heat and flame to push down the stairs. When the fog stream was narrowed and moved forward, more water entered the fire compartment, the pressure at the window reduced. Cooling the fire reduced the pressure created by the fire itself and caused some of the fire gases to contract. As a result, the high pressure push stopped. So we've shown that you can push fire with a hose stream if the air from the stream creates a higher pressure area and the lower pressure area has oxygen available for combustion. However, we can also see that this can be prevented by the use of a solid or straight stream with limited movement if you're attacking from the exhaust side. If you're working in the interior and attacking toward the exhaust, you may want to use air pressure to your advantage to force heat away from your position and out another exhaust vent. Basically, it's all a battle of the pressures, pushing fire. When fuel gases hot enough to burn are displaced from an oxygen-limited compartment to a space with oxygen that mixes with the hot fuel gases and results in combustion. Please see our studies on ventilation, positive pressure ventilation, and fire attack so you can get a better understanding of the pressures created by a fire inside a structure, the impact of wind, the impact of fans, and the impact of hose streams, so you can make good choices on the fire ground.
So those little things make a difference, even with the use of the smoothbore, you know, whether you're exterior or interior. And I like the way you're saying that it's a transition. It does, no matter where we're from, we just got to think of it in that water mapping, you know, gallons per second mentality.
And so in the air entrainment, there's two parts here. So there's the air entrainment. Air into a space is going to increase the fire activity and the pressure. And there's a really good UL video about that. They say even for reset, if it's a first floor reset, slow, steady, but then as soon as possible, get the nozzle into the occupancy so that way you don't have the potential of that air entrainment. If the nozzle is in the occupancy, then all the Venturi effect is going to be kind of recycled in the room. You're not bringing in external air to that room.
Right.
As soon as that nozzle crosses that window, the entrainment is in the room. It almost just kind of recools.
Right.
It becomes like a reverse of a turbo.
Right.
You know, it's cooling and then cooling, and it has that effect. So the latest UL videos on transitional attack, it's knock down and then get it into the room. Where they're saying transitional attack, you really need to be considering is a second floor, because the transition time is that counter punch. You may get into this reset, recycle is what they call it. You're resetting a second floor fire, you're knocking it down, but then as soon as you shut your nozzle down, there's that regrowth because you haven't actually cooled the interior, you've just made that knockdown. What departments get into is they're making that second floor knockdown, they shut down and they're trying to make it to the front door. Well, now it lights off again. And then you get into this, do I go inside or do I back up? Well, if you just keep hitting it from the outside, we're never addressing the interior. And we don't know if that door is open. We don't know of all those things. So that's that side of it. The other side of it is you talk about the air entrainment, but also even if that room is compartmentalized, if that door is closed and it's a working fire and it's out that window, we talk about you can't push fire, but with the smoothbore, it's less likely to. That variable has been reduced. But really active movement with the smoothbore will seal up that exhaust. You know, we are inserting water into the exhaust essentially in a compartmentalized fire. You know, inserting water into that exhaust with the smoothbore, it's going to be that laser pointer, cool those surfaces, water mapping down. If we turn that fog to 30 degrees, we seal that window. One, water's not getting in because you have that cone. We all know how the fog nozzle works. It's going all around the window and nothing's going in. But we can do the same thing with the smoothbore. Really actively playing that window, we can seal off that space. That's why there's that, you know, steep, slow, steady movements, not really active lines on the exterior, because we're trying to apply water into that exhaust. We still want it to behave that way.
Yeah. Now, with that being said, we'll watch one of the videos that came out of UL, and this is going to emphasize the point of the steep, slow, and steady. In this example, you're going to see that he doesn't move the nozzle at all. And what you want to watch out for with that is that you need to move the nozzle slowly. And what I mean slowly, very slowly, because if you keep it completely stationary, the chances of you punching through the sheetrock is substantial. You can do that in about 5 to 7, 8 seconds. So as you open the line, you're going to keep it steep, slow, and steady. But you do need to move it, you know, every 5 seconds, every few seconds move it. But you just don't want to whip it to create that pressure differential. So you can see that the nozzle has been open, the bell's open all the way. As they're applying it, It achieves the cooling and taking the temperatures below flashover within the room and achieving knockback.
So there's a perfect example there of that lack of air entrainment. It's just cooling that compartment. You can see that that cold air obviously dumps, cold air drops, it hits that surface and then comes up. You'll see that smoke actually kind of rising from the bottom in there because it's cooling that compartment. But all that smoke is staying in that compartment. You know, we aren't over pressurizing that space at all. We're just letting that cooling in that compartment occur.
As we're talking about the possibility of pushing fire, you know, we've discussed a few different aspects of this. Is that we don't want to cover the window with using a wide fog pattern. We also don't want to entrain air by whipping the lines. There's a third part that needs to be brought up along in this discussion, and that is the distance that you are away from the window in relation to the cohesiveness of your fire stream. If you look at the slide that I've got here, we're all used to that. We know that each fire stream, no matter what nozzle we use, has an effective range. And there's also a point of breakover. And once the fire stream hits breakover, the cohesiveness of the water starts to break apart and the stream expands. So if we look at this one, the picture that I've got my cursor over right now, you can see straight from the nozzle here, it goes and it's a nice tight pattern, but at a certain point it starts breaking apart. As friction and air and wind and whatever gets a hold of it, it starts breaking the stream apart. And at the end of the stream, once it goes past its arc, it really starts to break up and gets wide. If you're in a situation where you're going to do a transitional attack or a reset, you need to be close enough to the window that whenever the stream enters the window space, that it's still a cohesive fire stream. It doesn't matter what nozzle that you're using. Obviously, you know what my preference is by this point, but even if I'm using a smoothbore, if I'm too far away from it, the stream's going to lose its cohesiveness and start to break apart. As it breaks apart, it's going to allow air to be entrained within those water molecules, and it's going to draw it in through the window. So whether you're using a straight stream or a smoothbore nozzle, you've got to make sure that you're close enough to the window to have the desired effect for a transitional attack.